question
Sure.
about Bernard Lewis. I think
Okay.
that's his name. Because when I left, I had words with the husband of the Board of Education who thought that I was jumping off the edge of the world. And he said the only historian on the Middle East that you need to read is Bernard Lewis. And I said, well, my understanding is that he has a quite slanted and limited point of view. And he said, sort of stopped off. And I said, well, but you know what? I like something better to give him. Because I don't like, I still want to argue with this guy. Or open up his mind a little bit, so.
Well, we normally stay away by talking about individuals.
Well, can we say that?
But I'll say something.
Yeah.
The first thing I'll say to them is the earth is not flat with 4 edges, so you don't fall down the edge of the world. I think that would. Bernard Lewis was a credible scholar about Ottoman Turkey. There are no credentials that anyone can show that he's a scholar of Islam or Islamic history, per se. In his old age, he has started saying things that he didn't really say earlier because they are profitable to say. He has become a star of the elements that are known under the general title of the neocons. And I think that's an oversimplification, but almost everybody that is doing some of that stuff is now being swept under that title, just like everybody we don't like is either Al-Qaeda or Taliban. And he actually is very honored in Washington circles. He comes and they give him rewards and they make great speeches about him. He's saying things that we have actually tried to refute without ever mentioning his name. There was never any such thing as a worldwide Khilafah. There was never ever even a dream of worldwide Khilafah. Ottoman Turkey never represented all the Muslim countries, even at the time of their height. In fact, they were one of the 3 powers at the time, including the Mughal Empire and the Safawi Empire. So taking even his experience from the Turkey thing, and even there what he represents has nothing to do with it. His main thesis is that the Muslims always had this big dream and it got interrupted, and now they really want to get all that glory back. And those people who have actually paid attention to the real history say, what glory? What are you talking about? They always fought with each other. Even the original Khilafah, Muslims don't like to hear that, but I tell them anyways. The so-called Khilafat Rashida, the rightly guided caliph, ended up being a political statement that people started making. Because Ali and his friends were upset because he wasn't chosen. So then later, after his death and so on, a political statement was made. Okay, we'll include him as among the 4. And Uthman was included among the 4 because he was an Umayyi. See, we forget he's among the Umayyad family. If you mention my name on this stuff, I think I may have to deny it. People don't like to hear this. But the reality is the first Khalifa was accepted easily because he came from a very small, tiny tribe. And therefore, the tribes who would fight over it were not involved because he was not from one or the other big tribe. He also was very, very close to the Prophet. He was almost his age. He was with him from very early days and agreed with the Prophet from the very beginning on all kinds of things. For instance, he would buy slaves and free them. This is way before the Prophet declared his mission. In fact, they both did it, but he did it more because he had more money. The second Khalifa, Umar, also came from a small tribe, and his force of personality was such that no one questioned that he will be impartial and not take the side of this tribe versus another. And in fact, he proved it by dismissing the most successful general of the Quraysh before Islam, and of Abu Bakr's time when he had sent him, named Khalid, because Khalid disobeyed some instructions, and he says, okay, you are out. And people were saying, wait a minute, he's our most successful general. He says, he's not, it's indispensable. Anyway, so he was successful. So there is no question that Umar, and that's 10 years. The first two were very formative. So if you want, that's 12. The first maybe 4 or 5 years of Uthman can be considered somewhat successful. And then it became chaotic. He came from the Umayyad family, and people started accusing them of nepotism and of corruption and of all kinds of things. So if you look at it from a historical rather than a political religious compromise point of view, which is the way I see it, the golden age is 2 plus 10, 12 plus probably 5, 17. That's the end of it. Okay. So even the original Khalifa didn't really last anything. And after that, it was not a Khalifa. It was nothing but family dynasties. So where did this other stuff come from? I mean, it has no basis in law or religion. Now, as far as, did people have aspirations to this? The answer is, who? The Ottomans, wanted the thing for the Ottomans, and in fact, some of the Arabs were so upset that to their own detriment, they joined the British to fight them during First World War, which they should regret to their dying days, and they're dying. The gunpowder empires, the 3 of them, the Ottomans and the Mughals and the Safavids, they were all almost simultaneous, and they all came to power using the gunpowder. And the Safavids are the only ones, by the way, in the history of Muslims who declared a state religion for everybody. It had never happened before. I mean, it happened in Europe constantly. Some king will say, the religion of my state is blah, blah. It never happened in the history of Muslims. They never declared the state of what they conquered to be anything. You have your own religion, except when Safawi came, and he said, the religion of everybody, not the state, everybody is Isna Ashariya. He just declared it. Well, it never completely happened, but the reason Iran is now majority Shia is because of that declaration. And he wanted to convert everybody else into Isna Ashariya. And the Ottoman Turk says, we are Hanafis. So they declare themselves Hanafis. We want everybody to be a Hanafi. There was never a unity. It has never happened. So you start with a fallacious argument and then impose it on the modern condition, totally ignoring what actually is happening in the modern condition, and say, what has gone, what is the title of his book that has become very popular? What went wrong with Islam? Nothing. Nothing went wrong with it. What we have done is the world has become very complicated. We have a lot of these unresolved issues. They are all political and power games, and they have happened before. I mean, the situation in the Middle East now is not worse than what it was during about 150 years of the Crusades, at least 90 years of the Crusades. You go and look at that time period and say how chaotic it was. Okay, this is historically, it shall too pass, as this, or how does it go? It too shall pass. Yeah. Did I give you too long an answer?
No, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Now, don't tell everybody what I said.